She texted, "I told your boss you're looking for other jobs. Maybe it'll motivate you to get promoted." I wasn't job hunting. My boss called me into his office an hour later. I said, "Let me explain." Then I showed him her text, quit on the spot, and started with his competitor the following week. When she realized she destroyed my loyalty to that company. Original post. I, 33 male, am a mechanical engineer. I designed conveyor systems for a manufacturing equipment company, or I did, until my girlfriend decided to manage my career for me. I've been at this company for 6 years. Started as a junior engineer, worked my way up to lead design engineer on a 3-person team. My salary was $91,000. Not spectacular, but for my area and my field, it was solid. I like my boss. I like my coworkers. I was comfortable. And apparently, that was the problem. My girlfriend and I had been together about 2 years. She's in commercial real estate, leasing agent for a brokerage. Competitive field, commission heavy, high energy. She's the kind of person who reads business books on vacation and calls Sunday evenings planning sessions. I don't say that with judgment. It's who she is. But it meant she viewed everything, including our relationship, through the lens of ambition and upward mobility. For the last 6 months or so, she'd been on my case about my career. Not in a supportive, "I believe in you" way. In a "why aren't you doing more" way. She thought I should be pushing for a management title. She thought I should be asking for raises more aggressively. She thought my company was too comfortable and that I was plateauing. I try to explain that engineering doesn't work like sales. Promotions are tied to project cycles and team structure, not quarterly performance reviews and hustle. My boss had already told me I was on track for a senior engineer title when the company opened a new product line next year. I was fine waiting. I had a clear path. She was not fine waiting. The comments got more frequent. My colleague's husband just got promoted to VP of engineering at his company. He's only 31. Don't you want to be making 6 figures before you're 35? I just feel like you're not hungry enough. She dropped these in a conversation like grenades and walk away before I could respond. Then came the text. It was a Wednesday. I was at my desk at work, mid-morning, reviewing a CAD file for a client revision. My phone buzzed. Her name on the screen. I opened it expecting something normal, a lunch plan, a grocery reminder. Instead, I read, "Hey, so I just called your office and talked to your boss. I told him you've been getting calls from recruiters and that you're considering other opportunities. I figured if he thinks you might leave, he'll fast-track your promotion. You're welcome, smiling face with smiling eyes." I read it 3 times. My vision went a little blurry. Not from tears, from the sheer, overwhelming, reality-bending audacity of what I was reading. She called my boss. She called my boss and my workplace and told him I was job hunting when I was not job hunting, without asking me, without warning me. And she signed off with "you're welcome" and a smiley face like she just booked us a dinner reservation. I sat at my desk for about 90 seconds doing nothing, just breathing. Then I texted back, "What exactly did you say to him?" She responded immediately. "I told him you've been approached by other companies and you're weighing your options." I kept it vague, but convincing. Trust me, this is how it works in my industry. You create urgency, and they respond. He's going to come to you with something better now. Watch. 53 minutes later, my boss's name popped up on my desk phone. "Can you come to my office when you get a chance?" I walked down the hall. He was behind his desk with the door open. He waved me in, closed the door behind me. He said, "I got an interesting phone call this morning." "I know. Your girlfriend called the front desk, asked to be transferred to me, and told me you've been fielding offers from competitors. She said you're seriously considering your options and that you wanted me to know, but were too loyal to bring it up yourself." I closed my eyes for a second. She'd added that last part, the "too loyal" bit, as if she was doing me a favor by narrating my inner thoughts to my employer. My boss leaned back in his chair. He'd been my boss for 4 of my 6 years there. He'd written my performance reviews, approved my raises, gone to bat for me with upper management when I needed resources for projects. We weren't friends exactly, but we had a good professional relationship built on trust. And she just detonated it by phone. I said, "Let me explain." I pulled out my phone and showed him her text. The original one. "Hey, so I just called your office and talked to your boss." I let him read it. Then I showed him my response. Then I showed him her follow-up about creating urgency. He read everything, sat quietly for about 10 seconds. Then he said, "So you're not looking?" "No, I'm not." I wasn't. This morning, I was reviewing the conveyor specs for the Midwest client. That's all I was doing. He exhaled. "Okay, I believe you. But here's my problem. I already mentioned it to the VP. When I got the call, I flagged it upstairs because that's protocol when we think someone's a flight risk." The VP's reaction was not great. My stomach dropped. What did he say? He said, "If you're looking, we shouldn't waste resources on the senior engineer track for someone with one foot out the door. He wants to have a conversation with you." So not only had my girlfriend call my boss, the information had already traveled up the chain. In less than an hour, my promotion track, the one I'd been patiently building toward for a year, was now in question because a person who has never designed a conveyor system in her life decided to play corporate chess with my career. I sat in that chair, and I felt something click. Not break, click, like a circuit completing. I'd been at this company for 6 years. I'd been loyal, consistent, reliable. And in one phone call from someone who wasn't even an employee, the VP was ready to pull the plug on my trajectory because the optics had changed. I said, "Can I be honest with you?" My boss said, "Please." If the VP's reaction to an outside phone call is to question my commitment after 6 years of work, then maybe the commitment only goes one direction. My boss started to respond, but I kept going. I've given this company 6 years. I've never missed a deadline. I've never called in sick for a project crunch. I redesigned the entire sorting line for the East Coast distribution client in 3 weeks when the previous engineer quit. And one phone call from someone who doesn't work here, someone I didn't ask to call, is enough to put my promotion in jeopardy. He said, "I understand your frustration. I'm not frustrated. I'm done." I resigned, right there, in his office, verbally. I told him I'd put it in writing by end of day and that I'd stay through the 2-week notice period because I respected him and the team, but that I was leaving. He tried to talk me out of it. He said we could explain the situation to the VP, that he'd advocate for me, that this could be fixed. I told him I appreciated that, but the damage was done. Not by him, by the system that allowed one unverified phone call to override 6 years of performance. I went back to my desk. I drafted a resignation letter. Professional, clean, no emotion. I submitted it by 3 p.m. Then I sat in my car during lunch and called a recruiter I'd casually spoken with months ago, a guy who'd reached out about a position at a competitor and I'd politely declined. I asked if the role was still open. It was. Update 1. My girlfriend found out I'd quit when I told her that evening. I came home, sat on the couch, and said, "I resigned today." Her face went through about 6 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, surprise, concern, and then, this is the one that told me everything, annoyance. "You quit? Why would you quit?" The whole point was to leverage the situation. There was no situation to leverage. You called my boss without my permission and told him I was job hunting when I wasn't. I was trying to help you. By lying to my employer? It's not lying. It's negotiation. This is how things work in the real world. In your world, not in mine. In mine, when you tell your boss you're leaving, they believe you. And now my VP thinks I'm a flight risk and pulled the plug on my promotion. She went quiet. Then, well, can't you just unresign? Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I'm not going back to a company where a phone call from my girlfriend carries more weight than 6 years of my work. So what are you going to do? I have a call with a recruiter tomorrow about a position at a competitor. Her energy shifted immediately. A competitor? Which one? What's the role? What's the salary? And there it was. She wasn't worried about what she'd done. She was already calculating whether the next thing was an upgrade. My career was an investment portfolio to her, and she was just checking whether the new allocation had better returns. The recruiter call went well. The competitor had been trying to fill a senior mechanical engineer role for 2 months. My experience was an almost perfect fit. They fast-tracked me through 2 interviews in 1 week. By Friday, I had a verbal offer. $112,000 base, better benefits, better PTO, and a title bump. Not because my girlfriend's stunt motivated the market, because I was actually good at my job and someone was willing to pay for it. I accepted. Start date, the following Monday. During my 2-week notice at my old company, things were professional but strained. My boss was disappointed. My team was sad to see me go. The VP never spoke to me directly, which confirmed what I already knew. To him, I was a line item that got flagged, not a person who'd given 6 years. My girlfriend, meanwhile, was doing something I didn't expect. She was taking credit. She told her friends, I found this out through a mutual, that she'd forced my hand into getting a better job. She said she knew I was capable of more, and that her phone call was the push I needed. She told people I should be thanking her because I'd ended up with a 23% raise because of her intervention. When a mutual friend told me this, I said, she's telling people she got me a raise? He said, she's telling people she engineered your career pivot. She engineered my resignation by committing fraud on my behalf. Yeah, but that's not the version that makes her look good. I didn't confront her about the narrative. I just filed it away. But then she escalated. Because taking credit wasn't enough. She needed to monetize it. About a week into my new job, she texted me, so now that you're making more money, I think we should talk about moving in together. I found a 2-bedroom apartment that's perfect. Rent is $2,400 per month, and we'd split it 50/50. Context, she was currently in a studio apartment paying $1,100 per month. I was in a 1-bedroom paying $1,050. She wanted to upgrade both of us to a $2,400 place, effectively doubling my rent, and frame it as our next step. I said, I just started a new job. I'm not making any financial changes for at least 6 months. She said, you're making $20,000 more than you were. You can afford it. I can, but I don't want to. Why not? Because 2 weeks ago you called my boss behind my back, almost cost me my career, and now you want to restructure my finances around a decision you made without consulting me. I'm not doing that. You're holding a grudge. I'm holding a boundary. She didn't talk to me for 2 days, which honestly was a relief. Update 2. 3 weeks into the new job. Things at work were going great. Things everywhere else were on fire. My ex-company, the one I'd left, had a development that I did not see coming. My old boss called me on a Saturday, not through official channels, from his personal cell. He said, I know this is unusual, but I thought you should hear this from me. The VP decided to eliminate the senior engineer position entirely. The new product line got shelved. Budget cuts. If you'd stayed, you wouldn't have gotten the promotion anyway. And with the flight risk flag on your file, you probably would have been in the next round of cuts. I sat with that for a minute. So, the promotion I was waiting for doesn't exist anymore. Correct. And honestly, your leaving when you did probably saved you from a worse situation. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I think you deserve to know. I appreciate that. Really. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how it went down. The VP should have talked to you before making assumptions. That's on us. I thanked him and hung up. That call didn't feel like vindication. It felt like confirmation. I've been loyal to a company that would have cut me anyway. The only difference between me leaving on my terms and being laid off was 6 weeks and my dignity. I did not tell my girlfriend about this call, because by this point, I made a decision about her too. The breaking point wasn't the boss call. It was something smaller. A few days before my old boss called, my girlfriend and I had dinner at my place. Normal evening. She was scrolling her phone and said casually, oh, I was talking to my colleague today, and she said her husband's company is hiring a VP of engineering. I told her you might be interested. I put my fork down. You told your colleague I might be interested in a job. Yeah, it could be a great opportunity. Did you ask me first? I'm telling you now. That's not the same thing. After what happened last time, you went and told someone else about my career without asking me. She waved her hand dismissively. That's completely different. Last time I called your boss. This time I'm just networking on your behalf. I don't need you to network on my behalf. I have a job, a new job, that I've been at for 3 weeks. I'm just trying to keep your options open. My options are open. My boundary is that you don't discuss my career with anyone without my permission. Ever. She stared at me. You know what your problem is? You're afraid of success. I'm literally out here opening doors for you, and you keep slamming them shut. You didn't open a door last time. You pulled a fire alarm in my office. That worked out. You got a better job. I got a better job despite what you did, not because of it. And the fact that you can't tell the difference is why this isn't going to work. She said, "What does that mean?" "It means we're done." She didn't believe me at first. She did the thing where she half laughed and said, "You're not serious." Then she saw my face and realized I was. The meltdown was immediate but short. She cried. She said I was throwing away 2 years. She said I was self-sabotaging because I couldn't handle a woman who pushed him. I told her there's a difference between pushing someone and pushing them off a cliff and calling it motivation. She left that night, took her overnight bag and her phone charger, and said, "You're going to regret this when you're alone and stuck in the same place in 5 years." I said, "At least I'll be stuck there by my own choice." Her mom called the next day. I was beginning to think these women's mothers had a bat signal. Her mom said, "My daughter tells me you broke up with her because she tried to help your career. She called my employer without my knowledge and lied about my job status. I nearly lost my promotion track. I had to resign, and you ended up with a better job. So what's the problem?" The problem is that she went behind my back, and when I told her not to do it again, she did it again. She's ambitious. That's a quality. Ambition for yourself is a quality. Ambition with someone else's career without their consent is something else. Her mom said, "Most men would be grateful to have a woman who cares enough to get involved. Getting involved is asking how my day went." What she did was identity theft with a phone call. Her mom hung up on me. I was starting to get used to it. Update 3, final. It's been about 7 weeks since the breakup. Here's the final accounting. My new job has been the best professional decision I've made in years, and I need to be clear that it had nothing to do with my ex's interference. The recruiter had reached out to me months before her stunt. The opportunity existed independently. She didn't create it. She just accidentally made me available for it by blowing up my previous situation. The new company is smaller but sharper. My team is 3 engineers, and we're designing systems for a client base that's growing fast. My boss, the engineering director, runs things with a clarity I didn't have at my old company. In my second week, he said, "If you ever have a problem, bring it to me. Don't let it fester." I almost laughed because the contrast with my previous VP, the one who flagged me as a flight risk without a single conversation, was so stark it was almost cartoonish. My old company, meanwhile, went through the cuts my former boss warned me about. 2 engineers from my old team were let go. The product line I was going to lead got killed. If I'd stayed, I'd be updating my resume right now from a position of desperation instead of sitting comfortably in a role I chose. My old boss still texts me occasionally, professional stuff mostly, but last week he sent me a message that said, "You got out at the right time." Smart move. I didn't tell him the move was forced by my girlfriend's phone call. Some things are better left unnarrated. My ex's narrative, that I engineered his career story, hit a wall when people started hearing the real version. Our mutual friend group is small, about 6 people. Initially, she'd told everyone she motivated me into a better job. But when I told 2 close friends the full story, the boss call, the VP flagging me, the resignation, the narrative fell apart. One friend texted her and said, "You called his boss? What were you thinking?" She responded, "It worked out, didn't it?" Which was apparently her universal defense. Everything was justified by the outcome, regardless of the method. That friend stopped engaging. Another friend, a guy who works in HR at a tech company, told her directly, "What you did could be considered tortious interference in some contexts. You're lucky he didn't pursue that." She told him he was being dramatic. He said, "I'm being an HR professional. You contacted someone's employer and made false claims about their employment intentions. That's not networking. That's a liability." She blocked him. Her colleague's husband, the VP of engineering job, she'd mentioned me for without asking. That also backfired. The colleague apparently told people at her brokerage that my ex's boyfriend was interested in the role, and when I never followed up, the colleague asked my ex about it. My ex had to awkwardly explain that we'd broken up and that I'd never actually been interested. The colleague was annoyed because she'd put her neck out with her husband for nothing. That professional relationship apparently cooled significantly, which in commission-based real estate is not a small thing. Her mom made one more appearance. She sent me a text, just one, about 3 weeks after the breakup. It said, My daughter gave you everything, and you repaid her by leaving. That's the kind of man you are. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my buddy, and he said, her daughter gave you a resignation letter and a panic attack. What a gift. The honest reckoning, and I owe myself this, is that I should have drawn the line sooner. The 6 months of why aren't you more ambitious comments, the comparisons to other people's partners, the constant implication that what I was doing wasn't enough. I tolerated all of it because I thought it came from a place of caring. I confuse pressure with support. They're not the same thing. Support says, I'm here for you while you work toward what you want. Pressure says, what you want isn't enough. Want what I want. I was 6 years into a stable career with a clear promotion path and a boss who respected me. That wasn't complacency. That was patience. And she mistook it for a lack of drive because in her world, if you're not aggressively maneuvering at all times, you're losing. Some people run on ambition like a motor. That's fine. But when you strap your motor to someone else's car without asking and floor the accelerator, don't be surprised when you crash both vehicles. I'm settling into the new role. I bought a better desk chair, one of those ergonomic ones that costs more than I want to admit, because if I'm going to design conveyor system for the next decade, my back should survive the process. I still drive the same car. I still eat the same lunch. I make more money now, but I'm spending it the same way, carefully, with a plan. My old boss told me something during one of our last conversations before I left. You know the difference between you and most engineers I've managed? You don't need anyone to tell you you're good. You just do the work. I think about that a lot. Because my ex needed to tell me I wasn't good enough so she could feel like the reason I got better. And when I got better without her help, she needed to rewrite the story, so she was still the catalyst. I'm not anyone's catalyst. I'm not anyone's project. I'm a guy who designs conveyor systems and does his job and goes home. And the next person I date is going to have to be okay with that. Not as a floor to build from, but as a life that's already enough. My buddy asked me if I'd start dating again. I said, eventually, when I find someone who doesn't have my boss's phone number. He said, low bar. I said, you'd be surprised.